Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of SLMA Radio. Brought to you on behalf of the thousands and thousands of members of the Sales Lead Management Association. If it has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing, it probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. Today, as always, we're privileged to have with us the Executive Director and Founder of the SLMA, the one and only Jim Obermayer. Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Paul, for the fine introduction. Paul Roberts is our announcer and producer for all programs in the Funnel Radio channel. Our subject today is who owns the pipeline, the creators or the closers? The pipeline or the sales funnel is evolving as marketing becomes more aggressive and sophisticated in the creation of not only sales leads, but qualified leads. It only takes a view of the sales funnel models to see that marketing has evolved from the top of the funnel suppliers to active participants in many stages of the customer journey. The question is, who owns it? The creators or the closers? Sometimes marketing is assuming both duties. In B2C, marketing is called upon to do both. In B2B, not so much. Our guests today are Scott Benedetti and Kevin Joyce, both of the Pedowitz Group. Scott serves as the Vice President of Sales at the Pedowitz Group, where he's accountable for helping TPG and its client organizations achieve measurable revenue results. Notice the last three words, measurable revenue results. He is obsessed with helping customers along the revenue journey to transform their operations from a cost center to a revenue center. On the other side, we have Kevin Joyce. Kevin is a CMO and Vice President of Strategy Services with the Pedowitz Group. He holds a unique combination of marketing skills and sales experience that helps companies to bridge the gap between sales and marketing. Kevin is in Portland, Oregon, and Scott is in New Jersey. So I turn this over to you, but before we get started, will one of you please explain the Pedowitz Group so everybody knows where you're coming from?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. This is Scott Benedetti. We appreciate and thank you for the invitation to participate in your show. The Pedowitz Group is a revenue marketing consulting agency that focuses on marketing operations. We help operationalize three areas for marketing: business accountability, digital transformation, and the customer experience. We do that in three ways. We provide strategic services that help analyze, optimize, and implement processes that take advantage of the marketing technology and sales technology stacks. We help optimize the actual technology, and then we also offer outsourced services to execute in the marketing space for people using things like marketing automation or media placement or inbound marketing. Thank you for the introduction, and I think it's a timely topic. This is a topic that we visit with our customers nearly every time. There's always something that is awry between sales and marketing. I think you've seen the headlines over the years. Sales and marketing alignment is definitely achievable, but not everyone achieves it.
Is it true that marketing owns half of the pipeline with marketing automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, however you'd like to put it? Or does it just look that way? I started looking at different models for pipelines development, and I started seeing that marketing was deeper and deeper and deeper into this, and that's what brought this whole subject up. Who would like to start the conversation?
This is Kevin. I'll start. And so in my traditional fashion, I have to use another metaphor. 35 years ago, I was trying to learn moguls, to ski moguls. And I asked a really great buddy who's a fantastic mogul skier, do I ski on the side or do I ski on the trough at the back? And he said, totally the wrong question. And that's what I would say to you, Jim, is which part of the pipeline does marketing own? Totally the wrong question, because it's not a matter of ownership. If I'm customer centric, they don't care who they think sales marketing owns it. It's all about marketing and sales sharing the entire funnel. And there's absolutely no point asking the question, who owns what? Now, I can rephrase it as who's on point. Who's on point for driving the relationship with the buyer at certain points. And it's not like marketing will stop any way through, but there definitely is a point in that pipeline or in the buyer journey, actually, where they want the salesperson to engage. And that's a much better question because that has changed over the years. Scott, what do you think of that?
Well, we go back and forth about this, and I think it comes down to that definition of ownership. Now, I tend to agree with Kevin, and we are trying to be visionary and implementing this collaborative ownership. But at the end of the day, when you talk to the sales team or in my own current position, sales is measured on achievement of quota, regardless whether that quota is achieved from marketing-generated leads or sales-generated leads or customer follow-on business. And every company that we work with divides up ownership differently. And that brings it back to Kevin's point of, is it the right question? We have seen in the market some organizations that are beginning to incent monetarily marketing for their participation and or ownership of the funnel or the pipeline. And I think those two words are definitely where that divide begins to create. Marketing is creating a funnel of the next or the new potential leads and sales. And sales is managing a pipeline of already qualified or identified leads that they anticipate to become revenue. I think when we get involved with clients on the marketing side, there's a big question of how do I optimize my technology, my processes, and my collaboration with sales for attribution, because they're just starting to or actually stepping up to say, I'm going to take ownership of some percentage of the pipeline. I'm going to go find it for you. You're then going to move it through the evaluation and sales process and close it. And then at the end, we're going to divvy up who gets the credit for the source of that revenue. I do agree with Kevin in the sense that we do both need to take ownership because we're the revenue producing arm of the company. And that's really where a lot of our consulting starts. It's to begin to establish that rapport, that back and forth communication. And quite frankly, I don't think we see that in the majority of companies that we work with from an operational standpoint, but we are seeing it as a desired state in many of the customers.
If I could add to that, Scott, I think for most people, it's pretty clear on the acquisition part of the funnel where I'm getting net new clients. I think it's pretty clear to folks that, yep, the sales guys source a bunch of that and marketing is responsible and takes a number for how much of the acquisition side they're going to source. And it becomes clear where marketing is on point and where they make a handoff to sales. With a marketing qualified lead, it hits a certain lead score. Great, we hand it off. It's not like marketing stops, however, right? Because the customer, the buyer, is absolutely engaged with the marketing properties all the way through close. So marketing, quote, may hand the name to lead for sales to now engage with the buyer. Marketing is still engaged. Where this becomes ambiguous for a lot of customers as to ownership is when the buyer transitions to being a customer. Does it then transition to support and service being on point and, quote, owning? Because now they have to get adoption. If it's a B2B especially, right, they have to get the person using the product, and they want to later on bring them back to a point where they can cross-sell and upsell them. And so who's going to do that? In some companies, sales thinks that they, quote, own it, and there's no role for marketing in actually marketing to their current customers because, they know all the customers, they know all the people at them. What help do they need from marketing? But the truth is that those customers are actually engaging with marketing. They're looking at the websites, they're attending webinars, they're attending events, they're engaging with marketing, and marketing can participate with sales to warm them back up, so that your sales hunter can have moved off to other things, and marketing will bring them back to that customer when they become an MQL again.
I'd like to jump in here. Scott, you mentioned something just a minute ago, which was this compensation end. We're seeing more marketing people being compensated for different parts of their contribution. Scott, do you have an opinion on that as well as Kevin? Should marketing be compensated? Once they become very selfish about the results and about how things are done.
Yeah, I think that I would tend to agree with your statement. Sales is typically very selfish when it comes to it because they're typically compensated through, or at least a majority of their compensation is through quota attainment. It is through commission. when you begin to start to identify what incentive compensation or variable compensation can come into play, I think you'll find that marketing becomes much more in tune with the sales team. You know, there's a lot of different methodologies for sales training and sales mechanics, but I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing prior to this AI or machine learning area is this thing called account-based marketing. It's kind of a buzzword over the last year and a half in marketing, but it really has been the tried and true method for sales for many, many years, all the way back to customer-centric selling by Bosworth or strategic account selling. So it's a method that sales has always used to take ownership of an account and be aware of the needs of the customer. I think Kevin brings up a point. Customer-centric is the focus that we try to help companies align to. And when you really think about the value that you're going to bring to a customer through your products and services, everybody has to get on board. It has to be sales. It has to be marketing. It has to be service. It has to be customer service or support after the fact. And with this new advent of AI or machine learning or big data, when the data is aligned, AKA marketing operations, what we call revenue marketing technology or the MarTech stack, all that data can then support the growth engine and the revenue bookings or identification of those potential leads. So I do believe that offering an incentive from a compensation standpoint and a variable compensation will help increase the marketing's focus on supporting specific revenue achievement objectives and move them a little bit off of the brand tier or what we call some of the vanity metrics. You know, how many views did I get or visitors did I get to the web page or to the campaign, and really focus on the conversions. How many people actually inquired or showed a buying propensity for our products or services.
Kevin?
Scott brings up the point of technology and AI and the various technologies used along the way. And I think this is another of those factors that further clouds the whole concept of ownership. Because if you think about communications, who owns communicating electronically with the customer? I would say it's marketing is the organization that has most got control of communications technologies. And I mean beyond email. It includes, all the social technologies. And customers are engaging with firms using those technologies before and after the acquisition. And so let's say I want to do a follow-up email to a customer. Hey, how's it going with adoption of our new technology? And trying to drive them further into the product. Is that support? No, it's marketing doing it, right? Because marketing has got the technologies. We can figure out where they are in the adoption of the technology. We can put in tools to measure what they've used. And some marketing, that doesn't sound like marketing anymore, right? It sounds like they're part of the actual product and service, Theodore Levitt's whole product. And marketing is doing that. Does that mean they have ownership at that point? No, it just means they're an important part of this collective in communicating with the customer.
You both mentioned AI and machine learning. How are you seeing that impacting the clients, not just from the Pedowitz perspective, because we probably know that you're using aspects of that, but what's going on with the clients out there? Is this influencing this ownership issue or influencing how aggressive marketing is getting?
So I'll be first to go on this, Scott. I think we have to be very careful with the term AI because a lot of firms are using it fairly loosely. And so I would divide it into two, which is there's machine learning, which are algorithms, basically hard-coded, and maybe they get refreshed once every 3 months, and companies have been doing that for 40 years. And then there's actually deep learning, where they use neural nets, and the machines are adaptive and getting better, but they're very compute-intensive, and not many people are doing that. I think it's okay to use machine learning. I think there's more and more software out there. You could argue that any lead scoring is machine learning. There's just some are more sophisticated than others. I think the ones that will be interesting, though, are the deep learning ones. And this is where you've got self-driving cars using this type of technology. They're very advanced, and they can adapt immediately when they see changes in the market and changes in people. And that's really what marketing is doing, right? Is we're looking at all of this digital behavior, the digital body language of the individuals, and we're reacting And marketing's responsibility for watching that and adapting the behaviors is going beyond the marketing bounds. We're sharing that data with sales. We're sharing that data with support. So we're actually getting the entire organization to be customer-centric. And being customer-centric means you have to observe their behaviors, their digital body language, and you have to change what you're doing, sales, support, and marketing.
Does that, Scott, bring the marketing to the trigger point where they turn the prospect over at the perfect time to sales so they can get involved in the closure?
So I think that when I see organizations, at least in their marketing departments, begin to look at AI, it brings to light anything that they have not optimized so far operationally. In many instances, customers have a lot of data in multiple systems, and it's disparate data. So they've got to analyze how they bring that data together so that AI has the best base to look through to determine what that bubbling up of the most qualified lead would be. Kevin is right to point out that there are different levels of AI, and I think that we're just starting to see that movement forward. Now, fortunately, the marketing groups of the AI companies that are out there are very aggressive, and they've got a great story to tell. Who wouldn't want a system to automatically look through your database and say, hey, client ABC is the best client for you right now. They're probably ready to buy. And these are the 3 people you should talk to go get that engagement and that conversion. As a salesperson, you all want that. But then you come against that fear of, oh, maybe they don't need a salesperson. You know, and I would go back to say that recently there was a situation where one of the vehicles that was running AI had an accident. So there is a certain strategy and a certain finesse that comes about in dealing with people. It's not all just the data or just the AI, but it certainly does help narrow focus and give us the best opportunity to engage with people at the best time to get them involved. In the B2B space, though, there are still other dynamics that you have to take into account. You've got to understand when people can buy, when they can access budgets, when they're planning to actually put together budgets, and what the overall processes are within the organization. And then I think that your senior salespeople look to systems, technology, data, and marketing to leverage the various aspects of communications that they can deliver or content that they can deliver at the right time over a longer term considered sales process. And I think those things are all important. So what we see in the conversations is people are excited about the marketing pitch. Marketing traditionally has always been very excited about quote unquote next shiny object. But when they begin to dig into it, they don't realize, or they begin to realize, that they have got to have the foundation set in place with the data that they're collecting, the big data system or the data warehouse that they're going to use to collect all that information, their marketing automation platforms, their CRMs, and then obviously the processes of who does what during the process, the handoff from a lead inquiry to a qualified lead to a closed lead to ultimately adoption or implementation, whichever the company uses, and driving towards advocacy.
What role does telemarketing play? Many people were predicting that telemarketing would fall by the wayside prematurely some years ago. And then as AI came on and marketing automation came on, it was really quite interesting. It seems like telemarketing has picked up speed, both inside the company, inside sales, telemarketing, qualification of leads, as well as outside. Kevin, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to go first on that. You know, I think a better name for that organization is sales development reps or lead development reps. Telemarketing, I think the term is starting to fall by the wayside. And as the sales development reps, a lot of people say, who owns that? Is that a sales function? Is it a marketing function? And if it's ambiguous, if that's cloudy, then that's good, because it is right in between. It serves both organizations. And I do think there is a role for it, no matter how good we make our forms, no matter how much digital body language we collect, you know, with progressive profiling. There's something that a human being can gather from a prospect in the first 5 minutes. There's a huge amount of information, and it's just so much better done human to human as opposed to trying to do it slowly with progressive profiling over many months. So there's absolutely a role for sales development reps And where they report into marketing or sales really doesn't matter.
Is this growing as an outside service today, or is it growing as an inside service, or both?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think that organizations are looking to try and bring it in-house. And I agree with Kevin. It's important to both marketing and sales. Additionally, when sales was in a pinch, they didn't turn to marketing. They turned to quote unquote appointment setting agencies, really telemarketing. And they would give them a set of parameters and they would get paid on either a retainer or setting up appointments. But nowadays, telemarketing can be a much more strategic effort because I believe, and I hope my sales counterparts that are listening in believe, that we're still in the business of human-to-human contact. And it's not, at least in the more considered purchases, the longer strategic purchases, people want to be heard. They don't just want to fill out forms. They don't just want to read white papers or look at videos or interact with digital content. They want someone to understand what it is that they need. And so the skill set of telemarketers has got to level up. I don't think that it's effective to have people just banging the phones. In the old days, it was if you make 100 calls, you're going to get, 20 contacts, and ultimately 2 or 3 of those will be qualified leads. People don't want to hear a telephone ring, pick it up, be interrupted, and somebody says, hey, can I set an appointment to learn about your business? They expect you to know ahead of time. And so that telemarketing person, that sales development rep, has got to participate in the same type of investigation and understanding of the customer that both sales or direct sales and marketing have got to do. And the level of personalization as it increases will help the conversion rates. And so I think with those reasons in mind, companies do want to bring that function internal. Now, I'm familiar with many, very prestigious or very smart outsourced agencies, but when you get involved with them, you see that their engagement includes the ability to level up that level of personalization as if they were actually internal. So I do agree that it's an important aspect, and it's not just the same old, make a few hundred calls a day, although there is still some success to be said for the cold call, a professional interrupter that knows how to create that engagement. But I don't think that's the primary objective nowadays for either lead generation on the marketing side or prospecting on the sales side. I think that it's got to be a balanced set of phone prospecting, social prospecting, and then following up the engagement that marketing has created through their content marketing or their paid media or inbound marketing.
It's interesting because TPG, everything on your website talks about achievable, measurable revenue results. You've got a book on it. You drive people to it. You probably attract those customers that are most interested in, everybody's interested in revenue results, but the most interested in the process are willing to give up some of those functions or integrate some of the marketing and sales functions. They're probably the most aggressive people in the industry from a marketing and a sales management standpoint. In other words, they're more willing to listen to one another. They're more willing to take on tools. And yet you take on new customers all the time that are probably still in their basic stages. How do you bring them along to the point where they actually look forward to measurable revenue results from a marketing standpoint? I still see some marketing people just avoid the questions. I don't have anything to do with that. I develop the leads. I throw them into the system. It's up to them to do it. Obviously, it's the smaller companies that are doing this. How do you bring people along to?
You make a great point, Jim, in that usually the people we see are people who've already made the commitment to change, right? So they already recognize that they want marketing to be accountable for some portion of the revenue. And they recognize that they have to be customer-centric. And they recognize that they have to make a lean, mean, efficient marketing organization, and choosing from 5,000 different technologies is hard. And so I think the biggest part is already done for us, which is they're acknowledging that they have to change. If somebody isn't already in that space, it's very hard to get them there. But once they know they have to change, even though they may only be at the very first step of a long journey. You start them along the path. You do explain to them with good change management, it's going to be a multi-year journey. And we're going to have to build infrastructure at the beginning, right? We can't immediately start doing reports that shows how marketing is accountable because they won't have the data to collect. They won't have the data to represent it. They won't have the systems to collect the data. They won't have the processes to put the data into the systems. So there's a set of infrastructure that has to be built in order to get to a revenue marketing organization, one that's accountable and measurable and predictable.
And I know this wasn't meant to be a commercial for the Pedowitz Group. So does the agency fulfill that technology function for many of the companies so they don't have to develop a lot of this inside? Scott?
So we do. I think companies have the option of buy, build, or lease, as is often referred to in the old software days. And to be self-serving, we do offer outsourced administration of the MarTech stacks. But most clients want to, at some point, bring a lot of that internal. So we can help accelerate that for people by getting them set up more quickly, have it operating correctly, and then being able to turn over the flying ship as it is already running. I'd like to tag along on Kevin's point, because in my conversations, when people are first engaging with the Pedowitz Group, it's typically a marketer, usually a leader, and they may aspire to become revenue marketers, the ability to attribute their spend to the marketing result and have the ability to be scalable and repeatable and really function in lockstep with sales. But the most important thing that we have to find is some type of executive level sponsorship. And I've come across, I would say it's 60-40. When the marketer contacts us, they're all gung-ho on the ability to do this, but it's not always being driven from the top down. There are a variety of seats in what we call the C-suite that do not get what we're trying to do or do not get what marketing is trying to do, only because they've never really delved into the marketing aspect. They look at operations to do cost cutting and efficiencies to create a better profit margin. They look at sales to just increase the top line. And marketing is still often perceived as that, hey, make it pretty, make it the website type of group, and not necessarily a contributor to the overall revenue achievement function. And so the battle begins right there at the beginning. Do I have, or how do I create that executive sponsorship? How do I create a marketing story that I want to invest sometimes millions and millions of dollars in technology, which was traditionally an IT conversation, that's going to have a return on the top line revenue? And then that brings into account, another political conversation at least in larger organizations with a very controlling IT department. How do those people play? How do all those functions play within the establishing the business case and then actually achieving the ROI from the business case? It's
Kevin,
not an easy answer.
Yeah, this kind of circles back around to some of Kevin's opening remarks about this whole ownership issue. And in some respects, we're asking the wrong question about who owns the pipeline. That just sets up conflict, I should imagine. I personally believe that regardless of marketing's involvement, all the way through, marketing serves the revenue function. The revenue function are the people on the front line. So while they're very much equals at the bottom line, I have a tendency to believe that sales owns the results, but so does marketing. But marketing serves at the pleasure of the salespeople that have needs.
Interestingly enough, I would just pose this as a controversial comment, but the customer owns the pipeline. I can't tell you how many times I sent here at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, and my management team is saying, when is this going to close? Is that going to close? Kevin's calling me, hey, here's all my marketing generated or marketing attributed leads. When are they going to close? And I'm spinning my 8 ball as best as I can to see what the answer is going to be. I'm looking at the crystal ball. And I expect through through proper management of the pipeline and evaluation of the sales cycle that something's going to close, and then it doesn't close. Somebody went on vacation, legal had to look at a contract again. There was a last minute ad or deduction. So I would pose out to your audience, doesn't the customer own the pipeline? Aren't they the folks that are actually going to make the final decisions?
I'm going to have
I say that jokingly because I know that I'm taking a task.
I've got to add to this too. So Jim, if Scott and I have left you here confused with your original question, that'll be good. And my add to that is Howard Morganis, who is a past chairman of Procter & Gamble, said, marketing is an approach to business rather than a specialist discipline. It is no more the exclusive responsibility of the marketing department than profitability is the sole charge of the finance department. We're all in marketing, sales, support, everybody.
Gentlemen, this has been a very interesting discussion. The radio audience doesn't see what I see, which is you two going back and forth visually. That was worth the price of admission there. How does someone reach you, Scott, and reach you, Kevin, at the Pedowitz Group to talk about the subject a little bit more?
Sure. So they can reach us primarily at our website. There's plenty of contact us forms, www.pedowitzgroup.com, or I can be reached directly at Scott, that's SCOTT, at pedowitzgroup.com.
Kevin at pedowitzgroup.com, and that's PEDOWITZ.
So is the bottom line here, and who owns the pipeline? Do you both agree that the customer owns the pipeline?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Great discussion today, gentlemen. Thank you so much for asking.
Thanks, Jim. We appreciate it, and we love your organization. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Paul, over
Bye-bye.
to you.
You've been listening to another episode of SLMA Radio, brought to you on behalf of the thousands and thousands of members of the Sales Lead Management Association. If it has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing, it probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. Part of the ever-growing list of programs on the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.